Constantinople, March 536. A war historian named Procopius steps out before dawn to do what he does every morning: watch the empire wake up. Except this morning, the sun comes up broken. It rises on schedule and gives, in his words, light without brightness, like the moon. No glare, no heat. At noon, bodies cast no shadows. Procopius is a professional witness: sieges, plagues, emperors, and he files this under omens. The sky is announcing something about the war. He's wrong. Omens point forward. What he's watching is the start of something that points backward: a memory. It will cross a continent, kill half a country, bury a fortune in gold, and get written down 700 years later as a prophecy with a famous name: Ragnarök. The myth says the world will end with 3 winters and a swallowed sun. Here's the thing: it already did. This is not a prophecy story, it's a testimony. You know the trailer version. Before the end, the myth says, comes Fimbulwinter, the mighty winter. Snow drives in from every direction. Frost bites in high summer. The sun rises and does nothing. 3 winters, back to back, with no summer between them. While the world starves and, in the poem's telling, brothers kill brothers for what's left. Then the wolves catch what they have been chasing all along. The myth even names them, Skoll and Hati, a pair hunting the 2 lights of the sky. One swallows the sun, one takes the moon. Stars go out. The earth sinks into the sea. Fire climbs to heaven itself. And after all of it, quietly, at the end of the poem, the world comes back green. Fields grow without being sown. The sun, it turns out, has a daughter, and she rides her mother's road across the sky. If you've spent this month frame by framing a certain PlayStation announcement, you know this apocalypse. It's pop culture's favorite. The fullest written version of that winter sits in a 13th century book by an author this channel has met before. Hold that thought. Because prophecies have a tell, they're vague. This one has weather data. Start the file. Italy, the same months. A government official named Cassiodorus is writing memos while the sky malfunctions. The sun, he reports, has turned bluish and feeble. At midday, there are no shadows. The year has become a winter without storms, a spring without mildness, and a summer without heat. Frost lands in harvest season. The grapes sour on the vine. Ireland. Monks keep annals, a line a year, and for 536 they write down 4 words: a failure of bread. 4 words carrying a famine, and the next annal stretches it across 3 more years. China, the same summer. Crops die of cold, snow falls in August, and a yellow dust drifts down out of the sky. Even a Welsh chronicle joins the file, written centuries after the fact, parking the death of King Arthur in 537, right beside the words, great mortality. Take Arthur with a grain of salt. The grain of salt is the point. Every literate corner of the planet logs the same broken sky at the same time. And into that weakened world, 5 years later, walks the plague of Justinian, the opening act of history's first plague pandemic, arriving exactly when nobody can afford it. For 14 centuries, all of this sat in the archives as a pile of curiosities. Then the ice talked. 2015. A team led by Michael Sigel redates the polar ice cores, year by year, like tree rings made of frozen sky, and 2 colossal volcanic fingerprints slide onto the exact years the writers were complaining about. 536, 540. A third, smaller, in 547. The veil begins in March of 536 and hangs for about 18 months. The tree rings call the decade that follows the coldest in more than 2,000 years. And 2 details keep everyone humble. The 536 volcano at least has suspects. Iceland leads the list, North America contends. The 541, one of the largest events of the entire era, has none. We know the season it erupted. We still don't know the mountain. Now go north to where the margin is thinnest. Scandinavia in the 500s is farming at the edge of what grain can survive. The growing season is short, and a single failed summer already means hunger. 536 delivers failed summers in a stack. The pollen remembers what happens next. Fields go quiet, farms empty out, and the forest starts walking back over the plow lines. Across whole districts, settlements simply stop. How many people died is argued to this day. The archaeologists who reopened this case put it near half the population. Half. Whatever the true number, the North goes into the dark as one world, and it will come out as another. And in between, people do something desperate with the most precious thing they own. Across Denmark, Sweden, Norway, gold starts going into the ground. Not hidden in a hurry, to be dug up when the trouble passes, given. Much of it is one particular kind of jewelry. Bracteates, thin, stamped gold discs worn at the throat, modeled on the medallions of Roman emperors. The archaeologist Morten Axboe looked at the surge of these buried hoards and read the discs for what he argues they had become this far north. Little suns. And the burying, payment. When the sun goes out, you offer the most sun-like thing you own, and you ask for the light back. In a field at Vindelev, Denmark, one of those offerings surfaced in 2020. Almost a kilo of gold, including the largest bracteate ever found. And pressed into one of the discs, struck a full century before the sky broke, buried when everything did, the oldest sentence anywhere on Earth to carry a certain god's name. He is Odin's man. History forgot the name of the man who buried that treasure. His jewelry remembers whose man he was. He gave his gold to buy the sun back, and the sun stayed dark. When the sky finally cleared, years later, something in the north had changed for good. The sun amulets were never made again. Solar symbols fade out of the art, and out of the crisis climbs a new world. Great burial mounds, mead halls, a new art style that is all teeth and claws, and at the top of the pantheon, a change of management. Not a new god. The buried gold already told you his name, an old god promoted. The one-eyed warfather rises over what is left of the sun's cult. And because a sharp viewer earned this under the last episode, the Aesir, the family he now runs, is simply an ancient word that means the gods. Nothing more exotic than that. We pay our debts. The North didn't lose only its harvests in the dark. It demoted the sun and promoted a war god. Which brings us to Uppsala, 2007, and an archaeologist named Bo Grassland doing the things scholars are trained not to do, reading a myth as a document. He lines the poem up against the ice, stanza by stanza. 3 winters with no summer between them, the stacked, failed summers after 536. Snow from all directions, a sun that gives nothing, the veil. Brothers killing brothers, what famine does to a village by the second year. And then the detail that sells the whole case. The myth doesn't send one wolf, it sends 2. A pair, hunting the sun and the moon together. The ice found 2 eruptions, 4 years apart, hunting in a pair. Even the ending matches. The sun's daughter riding her mother's road, the world turning green, fields growing unsown. Because the survivors lived long enough to see the light come back, and only survivors write that ending. The idea now has a name in the journals, the Fimbulwinter hypothesis, and it has critics, and the critics have points. Not every region collapsed. A great winter story could occur to anyone living that far north. You cannot hang every 6th century change on a single veil. The population number is contested, and the gold as payment reading is an interpretation, not a receipt. So we do what this channel always does with its own favorite theory. We stamp it with the honest word, on screen, right now, and keep going. Because there is a second memory hiding inside the prophecy. The poem that gives Ragnarök its finale, the black sun, the land sinking into the sea, flame against heaven itself, comes from Iceland. And Iceland has its own end of the world on file. 939. A volcano called Eldge tears open the largest lava flood in the island's history and burns into the following year. Chronicles across Europe log a blood-red, weakened sun, and the date comes from the same kind of ice that dated 536. The first generations of settlers watched it happen as children. In 2018, a Cambridge team put the pieces together. The poem describes that eruption almost like an eyewitness, and it ends with the old gods falling and a mighty lord arriving to rule all things. Lines the researchers read as the fire's memory resurfacing at the exact moment Iceland was changing faiths. The eruption didn't just enter the myth. In their reading, it helped close the book on the gods it belonged to. So look at what Ragnarök actually is. The ice of 536 carried 400 years as inherited grief. The fire of 939 seen with living eyes. Two real endings of the world, 4 centuries apart, stitched into a single prophecy. And who does the stitching in the book we still read? 1220. Reykholt. A cellar you have stood in before. Snorri Sturluson, the man who turned Odin into a refugee from Troy just to keep the old gods publishable, sits down and records Fimbulwinter and Ragnarök the way the old faith had told them, as things still to come. He files it under prophecy. He is filing his ancestors' worst memory. The lie that saved the gods also preserved, by accident, a survivor testimony 700 years old by the time he inked it, mislabeled as the future. Every episode, we close on the same rule. The answers to the end are in the beginning. Today, that stopped being a motto. The end of the world is not ahead of us in the story, it is behind us. And the people it happened to made sure we would never forget it. They just couldn't make us understand what we were remembering. Next time, we finally leave the North, for now, for the factory's most successful product. Egypt takes a working architect with a payroll record, a real man named Imhotep, and promotes him over 2,000 years into a god of medicine with temples, priests, and a customer base. The best documented deification in human history. Every name and date from today is in the description. Go check my work. That is still the entire point of this channel. And keep the oldest rule of the story in mind, because this whole series runs on it. The answers to the end are in the beginning.